This episode is part 2 where I go from Rock Creek, Lake Powell to Rainbow Bridge. If you've not seen the first episode, I highly suggest you watch it. If you like Lake Powell and want to see more of what it is like in 2023, you will not be disappointed. Link in the description. Now, on with the episode. Thor here, so it's 6:30 in the morning. I just got up, got dressed. Scott's already running around his campsite. So today's the really exciting day. This is what I came on this whole trip for. And today is the day I'm gonna go to Rainbow Bridge and hopefully capture all of that. It's still pretty dark outside, but sun's not even up yet. In fact, the moon is still out. Yeah, gonna be getting out there and doing some more adventuring today, I think. Here comes Scott. He must be very eager to go if he's bringing his boat over. We said 7 o'clock. I got a couple more minutes, so yeah, I still got 15 minutes before I'm supposed to meet up with him. But he's coming over here today, so Scott may have been ready to go, but as for me, I was still a little on the tired side. Regardless, bright-eyed and bushied, we left the cruiser and campsite behind and began the cold journey from Rock Creek to a canyon called Forbidden Canyon, which connects to Bridge Canyon where Rainbow Bridge resides. I found it strange that the canyon was named something so melodramatic, but even more so that the canyon's entrance marker said Rainbow Bridge National Monument instead of the canyon's name. I suppose in many respects it probably helps the tourists find this location. The canyon was located in the main channel on a slight bend. Considering the many offshoot canyons that Lake Powell has to offer, this one did not look any different. The canyon itself was quite windy and scenic, as many of Lake Powell's canyons are. The bathtub ring was quite apparent here, and I found it interesting that some of the tiger stripes were reasserting their dominance upon it. Scott likes to drive on plane. This made it particularly difficult for me to capture the canyon, but suffice to say the calm demeanor of the water helped. The camera footage turned out quite stunning, I will admit, especially considering the speeds at which I had to take the footage. So I will let you enjoy it unhindered by my words for a moment. Here, quick moment of your time. I wanted to talk to you about a platform called Patreon. It's a great way to support individual developers like me, support my dog, support my cat, support everything I do. I am trying to do this full time, and YouTube does not pay the bills, sadly. I would really appreciate it if you at least check it out. So until next time. Unfortunately, my camera broke as we entered the section of canyon that goes to Rainbow Bridge. My main camera would never capture another scene as it failed completely. However, I did have a backup camera. While not ideal, it is better than nothing, even if it too barely works. Landing was simple. I was expecting some kind of mud pit situation as had been reported to me the year before, however instead we were met with a soft delta. As long as you walked fast enough on the sand at the entrance of the delta, you would not sink in. This was a great relief as I'd heard some fairly unpleasant things about how it was before. The walk up the canyon was quite pleasant and not nearly as hard as some had suggested it would be. A slight incline was present most of the way, and we walked for a little over 45 minutes to get to the bridge. Accompanying the hike was the sound of Rainbow Creek along the way. It made for a quite pleasant experience. For reference, the hike could easily be made by most adults and children, although those with physical disabilities may reconsider this particular journey. I would also recommend that water be taken along to avoid becoming dehydrated. The one thing that many who have seen Rainbow Bridge may not notice in this video is that at the time this journey was made, there was still snow on Navajo Mountain. Not many people get to see Rainbow Bridge with snow in the background. In addition to this, I made the journey to the other side of Rainbow Bridge. It is estimated that 90% of the people that visit Rainbow Bridge never go to the other side and see it from that view. This was told to me by an ex-guide, but many of the folks I've spoken to about Rainbow Bridge have admitted they've only seen one side of it. Some interesting facts about Rainbow Bridge is that it is considered a religious site for the native tribes of the area. I noticed several ancient shrines and gathering places. These things were not easy to notice and should never be modified or touched. Before Lake Powell, the trip to Rainbow Bridge was very difficult. President Teddy Roosevelt made the trip on donkeys and mules. After World War II, people made the trip with surplus rubber rafts, although this took over 7 days to achieve. In the 1950s, people took jet boats from Lee's Ferry, but even with the hike, it still took 3 days. Rainbow Bridge only really became accessible after Lake Powell filled. During the surveys of Lake Powell, Rainbow Bridge was surveyed extensively. The effort to conserve it was not a simple matter. It was known at full pool that Lake Powell would touch Rainbow Bridge. Surveys were made to find out if Rainbow Bridge would be stable if partially submerged, and it was concluded that the bridge would be okay. During this time, many ideas were proposed how to keep the water from touching Rainbow Bridge. One suggestion was to create a small dam to keep water out of Bridge Canyon and to pump Rainbow Creek out into Lake Powell. Ultimately, none of these suggestions were considered, and in my opinion were blatantly disregarded. Fortunately, Rainbow Bridge has withstood Lake Powell and we can still enjoy it today, although there have been some symptoms of degradation. There was a study done to find out if Rainbow Bridge was moving, and suffice to say it is moving and not as stable as it used to be. It is not recommended to go underneath the bridge for several reasons, one being out of respect for the religious value, but I also suspect that the other reason is not recommended to go underneath the bridge due to its instability. Natural bridges do eventually collapse, as we've seen in Kodachrome Park. However, if that happens in our lifetime, no one really knows. In the meantime, I'm happy to say I was able to capture it on camera for all of us to enjoy. No amount of words can really describe this place, so for the next couple of minutes I'll let the scenes do the talking. Since my main camera failed, it would mark the end of my journey. I stayed another day and made my way back the next day. Like the trip to Rock Creek, it was slow going. The vessel experienced ignition issues and I was fortunate to get it to run at all. Shortly after this trip, my vessel's starter failed entirely and had to be rebuilt. All in all, it really was a miracle I made it back without having to tow. In many respects, I feel like this journey was meant to be. Lake Powell had been kind to me, and for this I am grateful. Leaving Lake Powell is always difficult for me. It is no secret that I love this place. Of course, I made a quick stop by Glen Canyon to say hello and admire what it had achieved and remember the sacrifices that were made. I ended my trip where it began, like a cyclical ending at State Line Ramp. All was well. So until next time, this is Thor, signing out.